The John Lebang Show has been known to make people laugh, sing, think, scream, throw things in rage, and generally lose their minds. Listener discretion is advised.
Worldwide and out to the greater universe, you're listening to the John Lebang Show.
Greetings, Earthlings, and alert the media. This week's second hour of the John Lebang Show is now on the air. And one way or another, we bring you the quality and entertainment of this broadcast. No power outage can stop us. Even audio difficulties can only hold us back for so long. And that's what we've had for this week's broadcasting. Not only audio difficulties in the first hour, but we were dealing with a power outage for part of the day, which made things interesting. We didn't even know if we were going to have the John Lebang Show this week. But somehow, the power came on. It was actually pretty funny, humorous actually, that, DTE calls me, that's our energy provider here, and they call me and say, "We're sorry for the inconvenience. We have crews on the scene. You should have your power back shortly. And it was due to an animal." And then, "Thank you very much, goodbye," and it clicked, hung up. And I'm thinking, animal? What, did Godzilla come roaming through the neighborhood and I didn't know? I'd like to get my camera out for that. King Kong, Rodan, Mothra? What kind of animal can damage an electrical line to the point where it puts everybody out of power? I mean, I wouldn't imagine some squirrel walking across the wire could do any damage, unless they're chewing through something. So I'm thinking some big giant beast, maybe Bigfoot. There's been talk of Bigfoot. More people are seeing him now, apparently. So maybe he was the one roaming through my neighborhood, ripping down power lines because it was an animal. I don't think deers jump way up there to knock out the power line. Imagine Bambi just jumping along, and jumping up and knocking down the power line or the pole. So I don't think it's Bambi. Maybe it's a grizzly bear. I'm hoping it's actually Godzilla, because I would actually like to film that. So that was our interesting march right up to the broadcast of this week's episodes. And we're doing this on the fly, ladies and gentlemen, because of all that. And we couldn't figure out what the audio difficulties were because we hadn't touched anything from last week. And we had great audio the last 5, 6, 7 weeks. And we've kind of spent a lot of time getting this setup going so that way the audio sounds great when it broadcasts from the microphone through all the compressors and the mixer and everything and out to the world. We've got that right in line now, where it works with my voice and everything. And we hadn't touched anything. So when we were a little bit wacky in the first hour, it was confusing. We're checking the mic cords and everything. We can't figure out what the hell's the matter. Finally, after a few hours of research, happened to notice that, the compressor was turned off. So we were getting all distorted because the compressor wasn't on. And not the power. The power was on. The little switch to turn it off, or the bypass, had been clicked on for some apparent reason. We thought we've had a ghost in this house. We can't prove it, of course. But there's been times where we've been like, there might be a ghost here. There may be some spirit haunting the house. We had the wacky stuff going on with Windows 10. But apparently, since we had the computer problems a few weeks back and we had the computer guys run the Exorcist program to eliminate Windows 10 from the computer, and we put back the original Windows 7, we gave it its soul back after being possessed by the evil Windows 10. It's been running great. We found money the other day, didn't put it there. I don't know where it came from. Weird, wacky things happen and you don't know how to explain it. Could be some ghost haunting me. At least they're not, raping me at night or something. That's something to be thankful for. If they're leaving me money and if they're just playing little tricks on me, like turning off the compressor or messing with my computer, I guess I don't have that much to complain about. I could have one of those evil demon ghosts that take over your body and do weird things to you, like spin your head in a circle. At least I don't have to deal with that. Do you guys out there, do you have any ghost stories? Do you have anything that was strange or odd or weird that happened to you? Feel free to chime in the chat room and let us know what happened. When I was younger, I don't know if I've told this story before, but when I was younger, I stayed with my grandparents for some time, and I lived upstairs. That was where my room was. And there was this one night where, I blamed it on a dream, but it was a very weird dream, and at the end I began to fall. Just this feeling of spinning and falling, spinning and falling, spinning and falling. And then, in the dream or in reality, I couldn't discern between the two because I thought I was awake towards the end there. I woke up and for sure, and I felt there was something in the room, I could tell you that. I felt like I landed on my bed. It was like a boom. You have to attribute that to dreams because you can't know for sure anything beyond that. Yet I woke up and I felt like, I'd landed in my bed, and it felt like there was a dark being there. I don't know what you call it. There was something spooky going on in the room. I didn't feel alone. And I just laid there because I was like, okay. Just hoping that if it's like a monster, like a T-Rex or a demon or whatever it might be, that if you don't move, they don't see you because you're in the dark, right? Well, I stayed there all night. Morning came. Went down to the house, the bottom of the house downstairs. And just sat on had breakfast, went through my daily whatever. Just it was in the back of my mind all day. It was bothering me. Next day, come nighttime, I didn't even want to go up into that room. And literally that experience, that nightmare, that dream, that whatever it was, forced me to sleep on a recliner for 2 weeks downstairs until I felt comfortable enough to go back upstairs. It was a very odd experience. There's been times in my home where I've heard my dog scratching herself, and I know she's not here anymore. So have you experienced these events? Have you maybe had dreams that felt so real you couldn't really tell if it was a dream or if it was reality, and maybe you were in some other place? Because I've gone through that. And lately, we've had certain things happen here that make me think, what's going on? Do I have a ghost in my house? Things being moved. Things being turned off. Noises that shouldn't be happening are happening. There's been times where I've been on the computer typing and I felt like something walked by me. Like a shadow, right? Have you ever experienced that? And do you believe in those paranormal events? Ghosts and specters and beings from otherworldly places? Because a lot of weird things happen. But a lot of things that are weird happen everywhere, not just here. But in your home, have you experienced this sort of thing? Are there anybody, because I know there's a friend of mine who actually goes out and videotapes them walking through like graveyards and cemeteries, looking for ghosts and beings, like ghost hunters. And they'll get little sounds on the camera. You know, and I always was skeptical of those things. I didn't believe in those ghost hunters and those sounds that they heard on camera. But it sure was interesting to watch. And you sit there and watch because you want to see the ghost pop out. You want to see that figure, that dark shadow. Maybe hear that sound from beyond. And so you watch those sort of things. But when it's happening to you in your own house, does it freak you out? Has it ever freaked you out? There wasn't a time too long ago that I'd done a load of laundry, and all of a sudden, when I go out to, it does the laundry cycle, and I go to take the laundry out to put it in the dryer, all my tools were in there. I couldn't explain it. I know if I would have dropped my tools in there, I would have noticed it. I mean, you think you would have noticed it, right? But then you question yourself, like, was I that stupid? Did I just pile a bunch of clothes on all my tools? I never heard my tools fall in there. But did I just pile a bunch of clothes with my tools and just wash everything? I guess they needed a cleaning. There were screws and nuts and bolts. I mean, it was just a mess. It was like a 40-minute sort just to get the clothes separated from the nuts and bolts and tools. I've lost money when I knew I put it somewhere. I found money when I knew it wasn't supposed to be there at all, and I didn't even have money. So it's an interesting phenomenon, at the very least, dealing with these sort of things, these specters and ghosts and creatures, if they exist. Could it be our imagination? Are they aliens? Are they beings from another dimension? Is it nothing? Our imagination is taking over. Maybe it's holograms. Maybe it's the government mind control. A lot of people poo-poo that, but let's just think about it for a minute. How many times have you ever been speaking to somebody, not on the phone, not in some chat room, not texting, just speaking face-to-face to somebody, and then later that day or in the week, you're on your social media and some kind of advertisement based around that comes up? Are we in the Matrix? And that little glitch, is something changing in the Matrix? Is it deja vu when you see something twice? How would we know the difference? That's the real question. How would we know the difference? Is it some being from another world? Is it our mind going wild? Or are we in the Matrix and some glitch is happening? Something really to think about, to get your mind all worked up into get it rolling. And we've got to roll, ladies and gentlemen. We're up against our first break here in this week's second hour. Stay tuned. More of the John Lebang Show is headed your way.
Don't touch that dial. The John Lebang Show will be right back.
You can bet on it, man. If you are elderly, disabled, receiving SSI or Medicaid, and you have a medical need or require assistance with daily housework, shopping, grooming, medication, you may qualify for housekeeping at no cost. Call now. VIP Home Healthcare, 248-579-3805. VIP Home Healthcare, there when you need them. That's 248-579-3805. You're listening to the John Lebang Show.
Join the radio revolution right here.
It's better than some good Thai stick, man. Yes, I would like some too. All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you're doing well this fine broadcast hour. We appreciate you stopping in. Very random show, probably. We're going to talk about all kinds of different things. We have a new study out of, London University out there. Only 1 in 5 people in the United Kingdom can boil an egg or change a light bulb. And that is shocking. 20% of the population can do that. 80% cannot do that. That's not good odds, folks. If you can't change your own light bulb, you're in big trouble. And if you're hungry, you're going to have to eat that egg raw if you even can find it. Because if you can't boil an egg, you probably won't be able to find it if you're in big trouble. And since, the tensions around the globe are intensifying, there's a very good likelihood, extreme possibility that someday in the not too distant future, we're going to have to face off against Russia. And I say we because the United States is on the same side as the United Kingdom. And if the United Kingdom can't boil eggs or change a light bulb, you're going to be in big, big, big trouble when the bombs are flying and the military action is taking place. And I hope it doesn't come to that. But I'm hoping here in the States, more than 1 in 5 can do such a thing. I have a feeling the number is probably even lower. Which means there's a whole lot of people that are not going to know what to do if something terrible happens. If something dangerous happens, some major event that cuts us off from supplies for any duration. What will people do? How are they going to react to those sort of things? If 1 in 5 can change a light bulb, and 1 in 5 can boil an egg, 80% of the people are going to be extremely unprepared if something so dangerous, so immediate happens to cut them off from any supply, because it's all going to be down to what you have in your home and how long you can make it last. And if you can't change a light bulb, and if you can't boil an egg, you probably don't have food for the long haul. And you probably don't have a long-term water supply. And with the tensions in the world, and really the unrest in a lot of nations, including the United States, including France and parts of Europe, other parts of Europe, that is. If something were to break out, if something were to happen, a lot of people are going to be in trouble. Because what that tells me is only 1 in 5 are prepared for anything. If you can't change a light bulb, you can't change a whole lot of other things too. And that's even your circumstances. Because light bulbs are about as easy as they come. Boiling an egg is about as easy as it comes. In fact, you really can't screw up boiling an egg. Even if you cook it too long, like 12, 13, 14, 16 minutes, it's hard to screw up an egg. It's still going to be edible. And if you're living in the dark because you can't screw up a light bulb, that says a lot about your intelligence. And I don't care what job you're doing. Think you're so smart. Can't do those two easy things, about as easy as they come. If you can go to the bathroom and make it in the toilet, guys. I mean, not shoot it all down the sides of the toilet there. If you can do that, well, then you can probably change a light bulb if you try. You know what? Public service announcement, ladies and gentlemen, from the John Lebang Show right now. Let's go through changing a light bulb. First, get out your box of light bulbs. If you don't have a box of light bulbs, you can go down to your local Home Depot or hardware store if you don't have a Home Depot near you, and ask the clerk. I'm sure that's the person that's probably wearing the vest and they look like they're working there. Ask them, hey, do you have light bulbs? They should be, if they're competent, they should be able to help you and take you where the light bulbs are. And then if you really have a problem, when they explain to you, well, what kind of light bulb do you want? Because that can confuse people. People don't understand the difference between an incandescent bulb and a fluorescent bulb and an LED. Try to do your best, though. That'll be your hardest choice. If it screws in and you can't make a you can't figure out what kind of bulb you have, just buy the incandescent light. If you have the screw-in kind, chances are you're going to be in a good position to have light if you just do that. Then you can take it home. Once you buy that, you can take it home. And then if it's on the ceiling, you get on a little ladder. Hopefully you have a ladder. If you don't have a ladder, you could use a chair, unless you're big and fat. Then you probably don't want to use a chair because that may not be enough to hold your balance. And you take the little cap off, usually 3 little screws holding the little glass thing on top. Hold it up with one hand, unscrew the 3 little screws and drop it down. Don't drop it on the floor, just bring it down. Keep holding it. Put it down, get off the ladder, put it down on the counter, then climb back up and see there's a bulb in there. If you unscrew the bulb, it's real easy. If it doesn't go one way, then do it the other way, and that means you're unscrewing. And then the opposite way is screwing it back in. Then you can put the bulb up there, put the globe or the little glass thing back on, screw those 3 little screws back in, go to the light switch, hit the light switch, and boom, you'll have light. It's that easy. Boiling an egg is even easier. You get a bunch of water in a pan. You get it really hot where it's boiling. You don't drop it. You put your egg in there nice and slowly. And you let it sit there for about 10 minutes. Then take it off the heat. Let it sit. You pull it off. You crack the shell. You peel the shell off. You cut it up, you eat it, there you go. You're done. You can feed yourself and have light. There's the John Lebang Show. Public service announcement for today. For all those people that do not know how to change a light bulb, which apparently, according to this study in London, is 80% of their population. And if you didn't know how to boil an egg, you now know how to do it. Any questions, ladies and gentlemen? Feel free to ask in the chat room. I'm sure one of the listeners will be willing to help you in any other life dilemma that you might have. Like maybe you don't know how to fold sheets, because that can be confusing. How about taking out the garbage? You know, if it's piling up in your house, maybe you need to take out the garbage. If you don't know how to do that, I'm sure somebody in the chat room will explain it to you. I'm sorry, folks. Certain things in the world set me off, and my sarcasm gets all drippy and it comes out and I can't stop it. And if there's anybody listening to the broadcast that can't change a light bulb or boil an egg, you might not want to be listening to this show, because it's probably way above your head and you're just not going to get it. You're not going to understand like 80% of the jokes, because most of the jokes are far beyond boiling an egg and far beyond putting in a light bulb. We do have some of the fun humor, the easy humor for everyone, but sometimes you have to think on the John Lebang Show. And it's obvious, if you can't change a bulb, you can't think. If you can't boil an egg, you can't think. Because I bet you, if you go to YouTube, I'm sure you've been to YouTube, right? You other 80%. There's a lot of people watching YouTube. You can go to YouTube and there's people on there that would tell you how to do both. And there's a video. You don't even need to think then. All you need to think about is going to YouTube. Oh. Because on YouTube, there's instructions for everything. You can find out how to do anything, anywhere, at any time, by yourself, by just watching YouTube. I learned how to change a dryer belt because of that. It's easy. If you don't know how to do it, go to YouTube. Unbelievable. But in this modern age, ladies and gentlemen, people would rather have other people do things for themselves than them do it themselves, because it's too much work. And that's probably why most of the people don't know how to boil an egg themselves or change a bulb. They'd rather have someone else do it, because they'll do it right. Because it's possible somebody might actually screw up putting in a light bulb, and then they would burn their house down or blow out their light, or I don't know what they could do if they didn't put a light in correctly. Anyways, folks, we got a break coming up. 30 minutes left in this week's broadcasting schedule. Headed your way. Please stay tuned.
Don't go anywhere. The John Lebang Show will be right back.
You'd be crazy to change the dial now. And I'd like to welcome our new sponsor, Pane in the Glass, commercial and residential window cleaning. For a beautiful, sparkling shine that's crystal clear, call Pane in the Glass Window Cleaning. You can find them on Facebook at Pane in the Glass.
Hey, man, it's at the bottom of the hour, man. Do you know where your kids are, man?
Forces of darkness, the treasonable minds who collaborate must and will be wiped from the face of the earth.
Well, the next apparent segment of the population that has some kind of grievance appears to be the science geeks. They're up in arms and having marches all over the place, supporting science, because apparently there's not enough support for science. Maybe they're against Donald Trump for some reason, and I guess science was a good enough reason to be against Donald Trump for. But when you look at what they were protesting or what they were upset about or what they were marching for, I couldn't figure it out. Maybe it was because there was no Starship Enterprise. Maybe because they need another Star Trek series on television. Maybe they were mad about the last Star Trek movie. I'm not sure. Did they want a Death Star? Because I can't figure it out. Why were you guys out there protesting? Seems to me that the protest in itself no longer matters. The protest. It just no longer matters. If everybody has a grievance about everything, and every segmented group can have some sort of march in or against some sort of issue, pro science or pro this or against that or whatever, then actual marching and protesting doesn't carry as much weight. I mean, if there's so much injustice in this modern age, in this futuristic world we do live in, where we're talking about flying cars or at least self-driving cars and robots joining the workforce, if we're in such a world where travel to Mars is just on the horizon and we can actually have tourism trips into space, if we have so much, yet everybody is so upset, they all have a grievance. And why are the science people having a grievance? If there's so much of it, do we want to simplify the world? Is that what everybody is upset about? You see, I don't understand anymore why anybody is protesting against anything. Everybody has some kind of grievance, and none of it seems to matter. It doesn't fit in with the times. In an age of science, the scientists are marching in protest of something. In an age of women's lib, where women are in more segments of the workforce, carrying more responsibility, making more money than they ever have made, we get a women's march because that's not enough. So apparently nobody is happy with the world and how it is turning out, even though it is turning out just like how everybody wanted, unless everybody wanted it only their way, of course. If that's what it all boils down to. But we have scientists in the age of science, in the age of technology, having some sort of grievance. They're talking climate change problems. People out there. Yet they don't want to address the issues that might be the actual causes of some climate change. Like, natural occurrences or geoengineering. Those two are improbable. We don't even want to hear it. When you're talking to people about climate change, what? It's naturally happened throughout the history of time? The climate has never been stable? Impossible! If you were to talk to some people at these protests, that's the reaction you would get. if you would talk about how we're manipulating the weather on the planet. We're geoengineering. We're terraforming the planet. Impossible! It's all because we're burning fossil fuels. It's all because we're meat eaters. It's all because we're just rotten human beings. In an age of more diverse freedoms, I suppose you could say it that way, but in an age where women have more rights than they've ever had in the history of the world, in the country that has given them the every opportunity to achieve whatever goal they wanted. They're not living in some third world backwards nation. It's the same with the scientists. We fund every kind of stupid scientific research there is. They're funding, I don't know, we could go through all kinds of research. How many people, what's the percentage of women? How do women react when eating chocolate in Nigeria? Are two lesbians living together in Jamaica making them happy? We're funding every kind of stupid research possible. How many hours does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop? Yet the scientists aren't happy. They've produced faulty research. Their striving greatest achievement ever has been weaponry. We can make weapons to kill all kinds of people. Yet we've had very little gains in curing cancer. Doesn't matter how much we fund them. Doesn't matter how much research they do. If nothing is changing, if nothing is getting better because of it, produce some cures. We fund research to see how many planets are in the distant universe, but we don't cure anything down here. Yet the scientific community is unhappy because they're unhappy. It's got to be over some science fiction geeky stuff. It can't be over anything real because we fund research for everything. What isn't researched at this point on this planet? There's funding all over the place. How about some people producing some positive results that actually turn out in the favor of humanity? We'll get some positive research. We'll get some striving new weaponry from these magnificent scientists. We get faulty research on climate change. Telling everybody it's the warmest it's been when we've only been collecting data for about 200 years or a little less. Oh, sure, it might be the warmest it's been in 200 years. Ooh, maybe, if you believe that. They leave out the fact that it was warmer during the Cretaceous period, when the dinosaurs were roaming around, in a tropical period when there was no ice on the planet, or very little. Now we're in an ice age that has a little interglacial period, and they're calling it climate change, and that's a big problem when it's happened before. Just hasn't happened when we were around. So it's our fault now. Everything's our fault. Yeah, the scientific community's done a great job. There's very little science done in the science community at this point, especially in the fields of space exploration. I mean, we're getting, I guess, a few independent companies and some countries getting up in space a little more often, but we're never going anywhere. Just putzing around. Went to the moon years and years and years ago, apparently. Can't get back there on a regular basis, or if we have, they haven't told us about it. We sent a little robot to Mars. Looks like Arizona. Looks like New Mexico. Somewhere in Nevada, I don't know. Doing a great job there. We can build a better bomb. We can build a Moab. Do a great job there. So I don't know. When I hear scientists out there complaining, protesting, marching for science, I don't get it. I don't understand it. We give you almost every tool you need. We've put too much into science at this point. How many trillions of dollars of funding has gone into whatever different kind of science project and science study there is? And what has it produced? Oh, we can make a baby in a bottle. We can make a baby in a bottle. Well, we can play God. We like doing that. Scientists love playing God. They don't mind creating a baby in a bottle, but they can't cure disease, like, I don't know, cancer. Maybe we should shift that study. Forget about making babies in a bottle for a little while. Just saying. And how about we put more money into the curing of cancer and maybe get some scientists that actually know what they're doing or something. I'm just saying. Oh, we're making strides. We're making strides. Doing great on that space program too, aren't we? We're making strides. How many years later? 50 years later? We're finally making strides. Getting to that moon really quick. I don't think it was as easy to get to the moon as they said it was, personally. That Van Allen belt was a particular obstacle that I don't know if they figured out. Oh, they got through it all right, they say. They say. Didn't fry anybody. That was a miracle. They went through a patch of the Van Allen belt that didn't kill anybody. That's pretty good. In their little tin can. Floating in my tin can. All away.
If you want to contact the John Lebang Show, feel free to send an email to jlebang@live.com. And if you're on Twitter, look him up at John Lebang. And don't forget to go to his Facebook page at The John Lebang Show. Banger. Now here's John.
Next week, you'll be able to hear our good friend Derek Shelmerdine. He'll be stopping in to talk about some rock and roll music, what's going on in the rock world with all the classic rockers, maybe what happened in the past week or so. He is going to, if this works out, be a regular guest once a month towards the end of the month. We'll get him in here to have him give his insight on who's left out there in the rock and roll world, what they're doing, how they're doing it, and how well they're doing it. And with that, thought I'd dovetail right into a little subject I like to talk about, and that's my favorite band, AC/DC. And in particular, we're going to talk about Brian Johnson. He's got a new gig, ladies and gentlemen, and it's a pretty awesome gig. If you don't remember, Brian Johnson is the vocalist, or was the vocalist, of the legendary rock band AC/DC. He had to leave their tour last year due to some hearing problems, and he was replaced, at least for the tour and possibly their next album, by Axl Rose. Well, that didn't keep Brian Johnson from remaining relevant, we'll say that. These days, Brian Johnson is taking his love of music and the people who make it into the small screen. He's going to be doing a 6-part TV show on Access Arts with musicians about what it's like to be on tour and to be touring all over the planet as part of a legendary rock band. Brian Johnson's Life on the Road series, what a great name, Life on the Road, will delve into the discussions with 6 fellow rock icons, including The Who's Roger Daltrey, Metallica's Lars Ulrich, Sting, Pink Floyd's Nick Mason, Led Zeppelin's Robert Plant, and Joe Elliott of Def Leppard. Now, they've done the interviews, and this is going to be coming out soon, and Brian actually had some of Joe's brand new beer called Louder Beer when they did their interview. And I thought this is an awesome idea. Brian Johnson getting out there, talking about one of the things that he knows best, touring the world. I don't know if any other band toured as much as AC/DC, but it should be very interesting, and it's on the Sky Arts channel, so if you have that through your internet provider, then I think it'd be a great show to check out. I mean, just to hear what Robert Plant has to say about all the times he was on tour with Jimmy Page and all the other bands that they toured with, that would be incredible. Pink Floyd, just to hear about the stories of how the songs were written and how the tours went, would be just an incredible thing. So I'm going to look out for that. I don't watch TV very often, but that might be something I'd catch an episode or two of. I'm intrigued about the Robert Plant and the Joe Elliott and even Nick Mason from Pink Floyd. You know, I can live without Metallica, to be honest with you. They were really good back in the day. But speaking of Metallica, on top of that, I have here right in my hands here the brand new Metallica CD, Hardware to Self-Destruction. You got to tune in next week, ladies and gentlemen. That was the other show tidbit I forgot to get to. But next week we're going to be telling you how you can win a prize package that features this wonderful CD, this awesome CD by an awesome band, as well as some t-shirts and some other musical paraphernalia. So you got to tune in next week for that. Now, I'd like to hear about Roger Daltrey too, because I remember when I was growing up, HBO had this series, I believe it was HBO, had this series where they were playing concert bands, concerts from band, and they had like the Who's, one of the last Who's tours, or they were calling it the final tour, way back in I think it was in the mid 80s. I was really young. And in fact, I watched it. I think I was in high school, now that I think about it. And to watch the amazing music of the Who being played. And I just remember hearing Eminence Front. That was like my favorite song from The Who. Everybody's Bubba O'Reilly or My Generation or Pinball Wizard. I always thought Eminence Front was the jamming tunes. Down, 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 down. To Eminence Front. Anyways, don't want to get into singing here on the show. We leave that for Abu. Eminence Front. But I remember listening to that concert and watching it on HBO and just thinking, man, these guys are awesome. And I never actually got to see The Who in concert. They're one of the few bands that I never was able to go to one of their events. Mostly because, when they were big, when they were huge, I was too young to see them. My mom wouldn't take me to concerts. Heck no. So when I got into music, it was kind of secretly. I got records through people, and I listened to them, and I was like a closet rocker because it was still, it wasn't. My mom was into the Beatles, and that was about as hard as it got. She loved Elvis Presley, right? When you got into bands like AC/DC and Metallica and all that didn't fly very well. My mom didn't want to hear about Master. The Who, though, that came kind of like right after her favorites So, the Who was there in the late 60s, early 70s. But when I saw him, I think it was like 84. I think the concert was on HBO. It was a great concert. And I'm like pretty excited to hear this Brian Johnson series called Life on the Road. Sounds like a very interesting series. It's like that Daryl Hall show. I forgot the name of that show, but I was over a friend of mine a few times, and we watched Daryl Hall, and he was in this like barn type thing, and he'd have a whole bunch of... It was Joe Walsh the time I saw him, I remember. And it's the same type of thing, except those guys were jamming with Daryl Hall. This is Brian Johnson interviewing people on being on tour and just talking. The stories that are going to come from that are just going to be awesome. Hopefully he talks about some of the shows that I even went to, which would be really great, because I haven't seen any of these bands outside of AC/DC and Metallica. I never saw Pink Floyd on tour. I hadn't seen Led Zeppelin. That was before my time. I didn't see Def Leppard. Oddly enough, I never saw Def Leppard in concert. Wow, that's a revelation. Because I'd like to see all the bands I liked. And early on, Def Leppard was a really great band. They went a little poppy for me. They went a little commercial for my taste. But they made money. And the girls liked them. Pour Some Sugar on Me. That got how many girls to, get all horny so dudes could get laid? So guys would take them to the Def Leppard show so they could play Pour Some Sugar on Me, so then the guy could take them back to the hotel room or maybe just in the parking lot and have a good time with them. I remember taking a girl to Bon Jovi for the very same reason. Didn't actually turn out that way. Took a girl to Bryan Adams for that same reason. That didn't turn out that way either. Although that was a great show. Bryan Adams put on one heck of a great show. It was actually very surprising. They had Cock Robbins opening up for them, and they were pretty lame. I was just speaking to a friend of mine about all the bands that I really didn't want to see, but because they were opening up for the headlining act that I did want to see, I actually got to see them a whole bunch of times, including, and I'm ashamed to admit this, but I've seen White Lion. I've seen them like 7 times. It's amazing, but they were opening up. For like a 2-year period, they opened up for every single rock act that I went to see. It was impossible to get away from White Lion. They opened up for Ace Frehley. I think they even opened up for AC/DC when they came on tour. And that's the band I've seen the most, AC/DC. I've seen Black Sabbath 3 times, twice with the almost original lineup, and once way back in 1985 when they shouldn't have been called Black Sabbath, but they were. It was Tony Iommi on the 7th Star Tour, which is a good album, and I wish he would have just called that Tony Iommi, because it was a great album, and there wouldn't be a little black spot on it, little asterisk next to that album saying it's not a good album because it's not really Black Sabbath, because it wasn't Black Sabbath. But it had a really good set of songs, and if you ever get the time to want to check out some different kind of music, then go check out Black Sabbath's album featuring Tony Iommi, and it's called The 7th Star. A lot of good stuff. Glenn Hughes, great vocalist. He played bass and sang vocals for Deep Purple. He was the vocalist of that album. Great album. I believe that was the direct follow-up album for Black Sabbath after the Born Again album, when they had Ian Gillan in the band. That was an amazing album. It was just filled with awesome stuff. Ian Gillan was at the peak of his career, and it was the last chance you could really give Black Sabbath back then to call themselves Black Sabbath, because that would have been their 3rd official vocalist on an album. And they just, you start jumping the shark when you have too many vocalists. That's the problem I had with AC/DC on the last tour. Like, no, stop it. Just retire, Angus. Just retire. Don't call it AC/DC anymore, because Axl Rose is not AC/DC singer. He's the singer of Guns N' Roses, dude. If you want to tour with Axl, well, then call it AC Axl, AC Angus DC and Rose. I don't care what it's called. Just don't call it AC/DC, because it's not. I'd go see Angus and Angus, or Angus and Axel, or DC and Axel. I'd go see that anyways, because I like you, Angus. You're a great guitar player. I'd like to hear you jam. And I don't mind Axel when he's singing Guns N' Roses songs. And he did an okay job. In fact, he did a pretty good job singing, AC/DC song, Axel's Way. But don't call it AC/DC. That's all I'm saying. Learn from Black Sabbath and what they did in the 80s. It was horrible. They kept running through singers. Oh, there you go. Switching up members. Oh, we'll just keep calling it Black Sabbath. Finally, they got brains going there finally and said, we can't keep doing this. They got the Tony Martin in, and once that was like their 200th singer, Tony Martin. They did a few more albums like that, and then Tony finally realized we can't keep doing this. And even when they got back with Ronnie James Dio, what'd they call it? They called it Heaven and Hell. They didn't even call it Black Sabbath. So Angus, if you're going to tour with Axl Rose, that's cool. If you're going to do an album with it, that's cool. Just don't call it AC/DC, please. Brian Johnson is the last singer in my eyes for AC/DC. And I hope they don't tarnish it by doing another album and calling it AC/DC and having Axl Rose or anybody else singing those songs. And then with the current lineup being the way it is, and the bass player not being in there anymore, and they're going to have to find a new bass player, it's not going to be AC/DC. Hey, John, you ready for me yet? Hey, Shady, come on in, why don't you? That sounds kind of gay, John. I didn't mean to sound kind of gay. I know you probably didn't mean it, but it did sound that way, just saying. Well, you know better than that. Well, I do, but not the people out on the radio. It's not like you're walking around town with some girlfriend or anything. They might think you're a little on the fruity side. Listen, do you have a cool or uncool tonight? Yeah, and if you introduce it, I'll tell you. Tonight's cool or uncool is going without power before the show starts. Are you sure people are going to want to talk about that, Shady? I don't care if people want to talk about it. I know I do. Well, if they don't want to talk about it, they're not going to call in, Shady. The lines are lighting up right now. I guess you're right. Up first, we have Peppa from Chicago.
I don't like it when the lights ain't on. I can't see where I'm going.
Oh, really?
That's right. All my baby daddies like it when the lights ain't on.
Listen, don't tell us anymore. We don't want to know.
That be love it, John.
Listen, lady, that's gross. Thanks for your call. Donald in Washington, D.C., you're up next.
I love you very much.
Thanks for your call. Now over to Ottawa, Canada.
We got power up here, eh?
Well, we got power now.
It's $20 for a hooker here, eh?
You sure you got power in Canada?
That's what they say, eh?
Okay, thanks for your call. Now over to Austin, Texas. AJ, you're up next.
But I will stomp your head in if you start a fight with me, you thug scum. Anyways, excuse me, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks for your call. Think he was acting there? Well, he claims he's a performance artist. Well, it's a bad performance, I'll just say that. Now over to Sanctuary City. Abu, what say you?
Hello, John. I love the Who.
But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about power outages.
I want to sing you a song, John.
John, just hang up on him now.
People try to put us down, talking about my generation, just because I ride around, talking about my generation. I love my camel out to the day, talking about my generation, baby.
Thanks for your call. You know, John, we got to stop having these people come on the radio and just ruin the whole show. I don't think that ruins the show. From what I hear, people like when Abu sings. Well, I sure don't. Makes me sick every time. Would you like me to start bringing in some Pepto-Bismol? You just might have to do that, John. Are we done here? Yeah, we're up against it. That's what she said. She said what? What did she say? Never mind. I'll talk to you later, John. Bye. And that's it, ladies and gentlemen, for yet another week of sonic vibrations known as The John LeBang Show. I want to thank all of our affiliate stations. Don't forget to go to my website. That's www.jlebang.com. Thank you all for listening. And until the vibrations of my vocal cords reach your ears again. This is John LeBang. I am signing off.
participants